a three-year training program. Um, it's 120 days where it is the first training in the sphere of Feldenkrais, Jeremy Krauss approach, child space, Anat Bayel, Bones for this whole outgrowth of Dr. Feldenkrais's work. This is which is very large, and people teach it and present it in different ways. That will be a three-year program, branching out from the traditional Feldenkrais world and organizations, and but accomplishing and teaching abilities through movement, the ATM, JKA ATM, functional hands-on for adults, and abilities through movement is for adults, and developmental hands-on for children, and sensory active movement, which deals with understanding movement of infant movement or baby movement or young movement, however, your developmental movement. So it's built around a program of 3 years, where the first year is the self-experiential part of learning to learn through movement, abilities through movement. So you can come out and teach classes after 50 days and of abilities through movement, ATM, JKA ATM. We do 6 hours a day. With the first hour, I don't teach, but they come in after the first hour. The first hour is always taught either by assistants, doing in small groups, or learning how to teach lessons or presentations or practicing. And then I come in and I teach the 5 hours of the abilities through movement. That's the first year of the training. Second year of the training is all the Jeremy Krauss approach, working with children and understanding the developmental aspects of children from early development through standing and walking, while at the same time, after having done abilities through movement for a whole year, people will be teaching classes and understanding where there's a distinction between teaching for an adult and how a child learns, what it has to do with special needs children. So it'll be a very interesting interface where all the people have been trained already together as a group in one domain of listening to themselves, and then going into learning much more sensory active movement, which is what is done in the children's work, in the developmental hands-on, before they learn functional hands-on on adults. Because when you work with children, it's a much more active, large movement. You have to incorporate a whole body and you have to relate. So it's a very different relationship model that you go through. So I'm curious to see, and I'm excited to see actually how this is going to work once the people have gotten the self-learning, and instead of going directly and incorporating it as it was traditionally done in the Feldenkrais world or the ABM world, on adults, teaching them functional hands-on or functional integration in Feldenkrais, or functional synthesis, I think it's called in ABM, that what happens is that instead of going to the adults, and the slow and people that have to be on the table, and then sort of try to transfer that to children, which two very different domains, you go directly to the children. And so you get a way to use what you've experienced with yourself, but then you get to bring it into a relationship with the child, an active relationship, and very different types of needs with children, and having to do all different kinds of movement with children through 1 year, from on the ground, like 2 months, all the way up to standing and walking. So you get a whole developmental spectrum using a very different model of thinking than when you lie on the floor and have no image in front of you, for abilities through movement. Like we spoke about, learn to listen to yourself without an outside image, getting rid of cultural norms, getting rid of cultural images, what's correct, what's incorrect. And then when you come into the JKA working, it's JKA ATM, when you come into JKA working with children, the basis is having an external image. And how do you deal with the image? And how do you understand the image? And how do you understand it in motion? And then how do you apply that to yourself? And how do you apply that to children? So that's the second year. And people will be able to go out and start working with children towards the end of that time provisionally. And then the third year is then you come back and start to work, taking all this mechanical understanding and developmental understanding of children and what you learned on yourself and the abilities through movement, and then you start to apply it to adults in this classical type of a teaching that is something that I'm steeped in for so many years of a functional hands-on with adults. So you come being able to relate to an adult in a therapeutic learning situation is very different than dealing with a child, and particularly a special needs child. So, and this goes, and you have and this continues through the 3 years that you always have this hour at the beginning of the day to either do a JKA ATM, or the students teach the whole group, or there's small group processes that they go through and practice and stuff. And that's how we do it. In the JKA part with the children, of course you have the supervision with the children, and in the JKA ATM you have all the teaching pods that you do, mostly before class. So we save the class time for my teaching, or for one of the guest teachers that will come, Sabine Pfeffer. And yeah, and then the 3rd year, of course, you have all the functional hands-on, and that goes on for 40 days. So it's, in terms of hours, it's more or less equivalent to a 4-year program. You have 720 hours in total of class time, and then of course there's the extra when you practice and the other types of supervision. That's more or less it. So you come out with a certificate for 4 different types of work. You come out with for working with adults in groups. You come out for working with children, either if you want to apply it to a typically developing child or an atypically developing child, understanding how to provide in groups sensory active movement, very different than abilities through movement lesson, ATM. And then you learn developmental hands-on, one-on-one with children, and functional hands-on, which is one-on-one adults. And they're all very different specific domains. So that's more or less the program. And I'm excited because I have a lot of parents that did my 1-year program, and they decided that they want to work with children, and they need the experiential part of the work, so I can give them a full certificate, because many have come with no experience of children, of themselves in motion in the way that in ATM, or working with an adult, because doing slow has its value when a person doesn't move, and you have to figure out how to do them when they already have all their movement patterns ingrained, and how to help them in that type of a situation. So it's an exciting. I'm very excited. It's in a gorgeous place. You've been here, so it's right in my town, right on the lake, and with when everything opens up, with all the exceptional things you can do in terms of the area, the walking, the food, the language, the cultural innuendos here. And I'm calm because I'm at home, which is really great. I can ride my bike to the training room. It's a gorgeous new training room. If in the spring and summer sessions, it's right next door to. You can walk and go swimming, or there's a really great outside pool that you can go into right next door. And yeah, I guess that's it. Sort of in a real big nutshell. So I'm excited. I hope the international situation holds up so that people can start to feel that they can travel again and feel safe traveling. And if not, people can do the first segments online, and we'll see how it works. So I'm excited about it.